while I'm sad. You've been out all night, know you've been bad. Don't tell me different, know it's a lie. Come to me, honey, see how I cry.
Hello and welcome to the Recovery Show. Again, we're back with the discussion on step 2, but from the family side of it. And step 2 is came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to a healthy way of thinking and living. Now, it's been changed to healthy for a reason. I mean, it used to be that it would be a normal way of thinking and living. Healthy is better, and I'm very much agreeable to what happened with that. But here's something that it applies to family too, because think about as a family member during the time that your family member or your friend was in their addiction, they really weren't there with you. They were not healthy. They were so focused on the addiction that you missed the person that they were before the addiction. Growing up, I had family around me. As I got older, family, we started going out on our own, living our own lives. And during my addiction, I wasn't there much for people that really cared. And they missed me. Now, not all of them came around when I went into recovery, but many of them did. And here's the difference I experienced, and something I think that the family members and those around them that care about your family member who's an addict in recovery can really take hold of. It felt like I was back because people they may not have trusted me right away, but they were happy to have me back interacting. It was like I came back from the dead, because when I was in my addiction, I wasn't there. But when, even if I was physically there, I was not there mentally, and the interaction was pretty low. Now, taking that in consideration, for those who are Christian, which is what I dealt with at a recent speaking engagement, I was talking to some Christians, such as myself, who I took it a step and I said, we think about what Christ did. Okay, God had a plan, and He told us about it in John 3:16, and everybody knows it pretty much by heart. Even if you're not a Christian, a lot of people know what John 3:16 says, and that's, for God so loved the world that He gave His only begotten Son, that whoever believes in Him should not perish, but have everlasting life. And that isn't predicated on whether we were good or bad. And in our addiction, we're like Jesus in the tomb. We're not there. Nobody's able to reach out and hold on to us. We've passed away as far as our real who we are. Because there's a time when we weren't in our addiction before we started that addiction. When we start in recovery, have you ever noticed that you feel more excitement that they're there and that you're talking to them, that you can interact with them, and it doesn't look like they're wandering off here and wandering off there. Their mind's with you as well as their body. Their personality's with you, and they don't miss events. They're there. They show up when something happens. When you try to get a hold of them by phone, they answer. And during the addiction process, a lot of times people don't answer their phone when they're in the midst of their addiction. So that's something that's really hard for family too, though, because how do you accept somebody working to get better when you know what they've been doing in the past, when you know that they weren't healthy, and you may not have necessarily believed they had an addiction, but don't you see a difference though when this person starts coming to recovery, that they're around and stuff? That's part of step 2. That's that step 2 for the family members too, because you're beginning to learn how to accept that they're there for you now, that they're back, that they're building up that structure again. They're building up who they are around you, around family, friends. All the things that they abandoned while they were in addiction are things that they now focus on in their recovery. It's as if they had left and you didn't hear from the real them for years, and all of a sudden the real person's back. Think about that when you're thinking about the person that's in recovery, that you're actively around. And for some people, there may be many people that are in an addiction that are beginning to come out. When they come out, you'll notice more activity for them. They're there more often. They start to show more interest in working with people instead of hiding away. And isn't that a wonderful feeling? But you also have that skepticism in the back, I'm sure. I mean, I know people that they're in recovery, but there's a skepticism with people because they're in recovery, but you've seen that before where they've stopped for a little bit and they haven't stuck with it. They may have been stopped, but they were still thinking about it, and they weren't necessarily there. As recovery moves forward, remember that they're there with you. Start taking a hold of it. Start accepting that there's a power that's working within them to restore them to the person you knew before the addiction. Start being a part of that power by allowing them to be who they were before the addiction, who they can be, that was arrested, that was hidden, that was taken away during their addiction. What they're building up to come back to, that is such a wonderful thing, isn't it? So recovery in time becomes something that both the family member and the addict have to start looking at the higher power, that somebody's in control, that something's in control, that you're not alone in that fight, and you're not alone in that recovery process. And that recovery process isn't just for the addict, it's for the people around them too that have suffered because of the addiction. In my case, compulsive gambling. Not being there and gambling and losing money that took care of the family, those are big things. But when you start to deal with recovery, you're working towards getting better at that. And working together with that is a wonderful thing. So for family members, remember they're trying. Reach out to them, to who they are, and hope that they reach out to you. Because if you're reaching out to each other, recovery is better. Thanks. Talk to you later. And if you have any comments or things to add, please feel free to do them at the end or email me. I'm more than happy to receive statements that show some more insight, because I'm only looking at it from what I've seen in my 8 years or more of recovery from the compulsive gambling. And it's been a long road, and it's still a long road, because I've got 8 years in, I'm clean now. That doesn't mean that I will remain clean if I don't keep an eye on who I am and where I'm at. If I let my eyes go off that goal of being clean, I won't be there. So this is Bernie Z saying thanks for listening, thanks for watching, and comment, email, whatever you want to do. Let me know how things are going. Let me know what your thoughts are on step number 2. Thank you.
While I'm sad, you've been out